Huge patch 11.1 redesign. Blizzard kept their word. Sweeping game changes. Now, I know what he's talking about a little bit here. We've talked about some of this stuff. Mythic Plus getting changed, the way raiding works with the new Raid Renown track, a ton of changes to how gear progression is going to work, lots of stuff changing 11.1, and it's all based on feedback, really, so it's all looking good. We'll see if it continues to look good. Evidently, it seems like Bellular feels like it's going to be good. Let's see what he has to say about all these changes and how WoW might just be getting better.
Welcome back to Warcraft News. Today, it's a big one because a while ago, PC Gamer had an interview with Ian Hazzikostas. He's the game director of World of Warcraft, meaning the buck stops with him. And in that interview, he said that they saw people's feedback and he promised that Mythic Plus would be a big focus coming into Undermined.
Good. It needs to be.
Which, of course, if you don't like Mythic Plus, sounds awful, but no, he was talking about the criticisms. That was a good thing to hear.
I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me. I like Mythic Plus, and I participated in every single season, always got Keystone Master, and no, not because I was carried, you degens in chat. It's because I enjoyed it, and I actually did it and participated in the system. This is the least I've ever done Mythic Plus. So I'm not a person who doesn't like Mythic Plus, but I'm a person who currently doesn't like the current iteration of Mythic Plus. So yeah, these changes need to happen, and hopefully they do the right thing, make it a little bit easier. They nerf the shit out of tanks and healers, and then and at the same time made Mythic Plus harder, which has just created a shitstorm for Mythic Plus this season. It's because you were carried.
The first PTR build properly terrified people, even the people who like Mythic Plus, because it full-on looked like Blizzard were doubling down on high punishment, high failure rate design, which was a real head-scratcher. Until this post came out, because the changes that they're going to be doing for Season 2 are absolutely massive.
They're great.
But of course, this is an episode of the news. There are more things to talk about. We've actually got a really cool mount you can get in-game right now. We've got new information on player housing that we really shouldn't have this early, but, you know, data mining happened. Blizzard let some things slip, and we've got a host of really strong PTR changes. So let's get into it, and I'll start with Mythic Plus. The immediate takeaway here is that Mythic Plus will be easier this time around, but I think the better news is that Blizzard actually does appear to truly understand what went wrong with Season 1. And to show you that, I'll just quote a few things from their article. Too many mechanics at once. Failure was too punishing. Rewards felt insufficient, and it could be hard for many players to find groups.
Yeah, that last one, I mean, even when it wasn't hard for many players to find groups, I'm a tank, right? So I just get invited most of the time. People don't have a choice. They just got to take me, whether my IO is low or not. It's still not fun, though. It's still not fun because all the other things still remain true. The mechanics are ridiculous. You're literally like that. You know that sweating guy meme where he's just typing and sweating like crazy? That's how it is to run a Mythic Plus. That's how it feels. That's not a good feeling. I understand maybe high-end ratings should feel that way, but when you're doing a +5 key or something, you should not be sweating your ass off to get that shit done. Failure was too punishing. Yes, I still say the whole lowering of the timer. Every time somebody dies, you get a tick of time gone. I think that whole thing is way too punishing. And then rewards felt insufficient. Yeah, if a Delve +8 is giving you what a what a +7 or +8 Mythic Plus is giving you, then it's not worth it to do it. Anything below a +8 Mythic Plus was just not worth it because you go to a Delve and get the same shit.
And it's definitely good to see those words coming out of their mouth because, let's be real, that's what we were all thinking anyway. So, to target those pain points, what they're doing is this. Number one, cast times on important enemy spells are going to be significantly increased.
Good.
It should be better for your combat pacing and readability. Also, tank damage spikes generally are being reduced, and when they are going to happen, they're going to be better telegraphed. Also, enemy packs will have fewer threats per pack, which again should mean better clarity and more focus in the combat design.
Yeah, this whole tank damage spikes reduce thing, I wish they would just make tanks good at the game again. The whole thing, the reason why tank damage spikes are such a big deal right now is because tanks got their shit nerfed into the ground. So now we're like squishy little marshmallows running around trying to hold aggro. We get the crap beat out of us. I don't know why those tanking changes ever happened, to be honest.
Your screen is not just,
I don't know what was wrong with tanking.
This is nice. So these are some major focuses they've talked about, but there's actually a bunch of other things that are already live on the PTR
Sam
right
wasn't
now.
carried, he was
Those
dragged.
include nerfs to Augvokers, healer buffs as well, and tank balancing that will essentially, if it all pans out, make the meta less important, which is good because if you don't play a meta spec, it can really suck. Now, as much as that's all good, in a way, these are still things that we could call details, and for Mythic Plus, it's good that Blizzard acknowledges the details are wrong, but a lot of our criticisms are the big level, the systemic level, and the good news here is they've actually addressed those systemic things. So specifically, they said the delves were a massive spanner in the works in how people were approaching Mythic Plus. Because what Blizzard designed, because it seems that their designs weren't really talking to each other, is a system where people would finish gearing up in delves. The next step would then be a Mythic Plus 7 dungeon, which would absolutely kick your ass if you were not ready for them. Now, that was partially because those
because players are always going to follow the path of least resistance. I've talked about this before. You're just always going to try to do it the easiest way. So if getting gear from delves is the easiest way to get gear, you're going to do that up until the point where you can't get gear from delves anymore. And then you're going to go do the harder thing, which is Mythic Plus. So diving in, you're going to get smashed. What up, Justin? I love you too, man. How's it going?
Were too hard, but it's also because they were 7s, which is 5 whole levels above where you're supposed to start in Mythic Plus. Obviously, nobody bothered to start at the beginning because they didn't need any of that gear, and many of the people with gear from 7s ended up not being experienced enough to do 7s, and the whole thing just fell apart. So here's their attempt to fix that. Number one, Mythics across the board are going to be easier. That's because the 10% health and damage scaling per level will drop to 7% until a Mythic Plus 11. Then next, they're changing the Xalatat's bargain affixes. Those are the ones that have got the various Kiss Carts effects, and those are not going to start until Mythic Plus 4. Then there's the case of Tyrannical and Fortified. The way it works is that one of those basically activates earlier on in the Keystone levels, and that rotates every week. But now they're changing it. It used to activate at plus 4. Now it is going to activate at plus 7. Now, at plus 7, you use...
That's a big difference. So that gives you the ability to, learn how to do Mythic Plus without this added shit on top of it early on.
Challenger's Peril, which increased the death penalty by a lovely 15 seconds, which people loved.
Sucks.
Here's the good news, at least if all you care about is gear. Challenger's Peril is gone. It's now being worked into something that activates at Mythic Plus 12. That's an absolutely huge change now, punishing these dungeons.
That's a great change. That's a great change because anyone who's doing beyond an 11 is not chasing gear anymore. They're just pumping their IO up as far as they can. So they're doing it for the sake of the challenge. They're not doing it for gear anymore. So that's good to see. This is a great change.
And the hilarious thing is, Mythic Plus 7 is when that used to activate, making the death penalty harder. But Mythic Plus 7 is also where delve-geared players were put into that system because of Blizzard's reward design. So you had all of these newbies that started playing Mythic Plus at the level where Mythic Plus became way more punishing. Nice that that's fixed. But okay, let's talk about rewards, because better yet, Mythic Plus 7s will now award Gilded Crests. And that means if you're happy with
this will make pugging much easier because the dungeons early on that majority of people are pugging will be easier. Nobody's pugging a plus 12, okay? Barely anybody out there. And if you see people queuing up with a plus 12, it's because they already got like 4 of the 5 slots filled. They're looking for one person or something. But it's those earlier Mythic Plus dungeons that people are typically pugging. And yes, this does all make pugging much, much easier. Is Sammy getting the 3K mount next season? Yeah, if I feel like it.
And that means if you're happy with maxed out heroic gear, you don't have to do anything harder. That's real big for people's access to a character that feels complete for the level of content they want to do. Plus, with the reduced scaling, that plus 7 will feel easier than a plus 6 did last season. And on top of that, Mythic Plus 6 is now drop hero gear at the end of dungeons. That means that if you really want to farm out like various items or trinkets that are great for your character, you can do so at the hero level. That's fairly big. Now, there is a little bit of a twist if you want to get this new mount. This is the Shredder tank. It's really awesome, and the way it was going to work is that this would be unlocked at a
this is the 3K mount. It's the mount you were talking about.
Now bumping that up to a rating of 3,000.
So this is new. A lot of people were commenting. They were like, wait a minute. I thought you got, for 2K, I thought you got the mount. Yes, there is a mount. It's a different colorway of this one that you are going to get. I think it's red and something else that you'll get for hitting 2K Keystone Master. This is the first time ever that they're adding an additional mount on the back end for hitting 3K. So that's what this is the big dick mount. This is like your Gladiator version mount, basically, where only a few elite people are going to have this, and they're going to ride around on it to show how big their dicks are. And we like that kind of stuff in WoW. Big dick mounts are very good.
Going to even if you can't get clear a Mythic Plus 13. And you may think, oh dear, this is really hard and punishing. But you've got to remember all of the changes we've talked about here. So remember, number one, the scaling is down. And then the plus 12 affix, Xalatat's Guile, has been changed because now, instead of giving enemies even more health and damage on top of the key scaling that was already happening, now what it does is it adds back the 15-second death penalty. And with that, we can compare what a Season 1 to a Season 2 would look like. Mythic Plus 13 right now has got a 214%
it's a great
modifier.
It's a great
but then
view
Guile adds 10% on top of that for a rather colossal 245% bonus. Then Mythic Plus 13 in Season 2 will just have a modifier of 145%. That'll be it. Because, yeah, that scaling really does compound as you go up the levels.
Yeah, this is great because most people are not going beyond here, right? Where you're going to get your crests and stuff. I believe it's Gilded Crest will drop at a 7. So, I mean, look at the difference here. Now, this is where most people are going to stop. All this shit on the back end doesn't matter unless you're like this high-end key pusher going balls to the wall. So right now, the difference right now is it's strictly a difficulty reduction. That's what all this is going to lead to. And this doesn't include the fact that now cast times are going to be extended. All kinds of mechanics are going to be more, visible and stuff. So this is all really good. All in all, creating an easier experience for Mythic Plus runners.
Just above where Mythic Plus 10 is right now. So that will be easier. It will be more attainable. Now, of course, the actual dungeons are going to be different. That does mean that this is not exactly apples to apples. And part of the changes as well is that Mythic Plus Zeros will award champion gear instead of veteran gear, but they will be tougher to make up for that, which actually should be a more healthy starting point for players who want to focus on dungeon content. So all of that does mean that the base 100%, that all of this scaling works atop, will be a bit higher because of these dungeons, but I would absolutely still expect Mythic Plus to be easier this time around in terms of the raw numbers, but also
I think it will be easier.
Clear because of the more top-level design changes that they're making to things like the cast bars.
Yeah, I was just talking about this, yes.
And the density of really punishing mechanic mobs within packs. Now, of course, if you're a big key pusher, you'll still be able to push yourself to the limit. It's just that limit might be a plus 19 or a plus 20 instead of a plus 16. So in summary,
which feels good.
Mythic Plus
feels better for everybody.
Much easier.
When you're going higher in the keys, you just feel like your balls are bigger. Whatever it is, you just feel better when you're going higher in the keys. Right now, a high-end key pusher, what he was pushing was a 16. Yeah, well, feed now an 18 or a 19. That's going to feel better. And then even on the low ends, people who are only doing 5 and 6 will now be able to do 7, 8, 9. That's great.
And more rewarding, but it still will scale up to be extremely hard if you are playing for the challenge and you want to push keys. But before we move on, there is one last note. Key depletion is gone, but it is gone only with a catch.
Yeah,
if you finish every dungeon in plus 12 or above, then your key will not drop below the level of plus 12.
This is the thing that I didn't understand. What percentage of the player base is doing a plus 12 or higher? I'd have to guess probably like 1%, if that is going beyond a plus 12. And getting a rating that is that high. What is it, 2800 or something like that? Why did Blizzard only put this fix in for these amount of people? When in reality, the key depletion is what creates a lot of toxicity, even on the low end. People are scared to invite certain people to their group because they don't want their key to drop, right? Because now everyone's going to be trying to get to that plus 7 so they can get the Gilded Crest. Well, when somebody queues up for your plus 6 and their IO's a little bit lower, you'll be like, I don't want to deal with this. What if we don't get the key done and it drops to a 5 and then I got to pump it up again? So key depletion in general breeds toxicity and creates a harder invite environment. Whereas if you just remove key depletion, then people won't be so afraid to invite randos and enjoy the run and see if they can get it done or not. It's I don't know why key depletion even exists, personally. I think it's just way too punishing.
Now, I still think that this should basically go away for everyone because it's bullshit and you can manually deplete your keys anyway.
Right,
but hey, it's a positive move. Let's hope that they continue.
It's a baby step in the right direction, but they need to make this actually viable for everybody else who does Mythic Plus and not just the 1%.
Maybe in Season 3, depletion will finally be gone. And do remember the changes Blizzard made to Mythic Plus after the Siren Isle patch. I know not a lot of us were playing the game in that period of time, but they did make it so that crests are way more rewarding. All of this stuff that I've just talked about will compound on that as well. I think back to Season 3, I believe, of Dragonflight. It was notably easier than what people had expected, but it actually...
Best season of Mythic Plus ever. I love that season, man. That was such a good season. Mythic Plus in Season 3 of Dragonflight, Blizzard just needs to put it on a poster and then figure out what they did in that season and then bring it back into this season.
Ended up being really fun, and participation numbers were really high, and honestly, the vibes were pretty good. So let's hope we land a bit closer to that. Okay, the next thing to talk about is player housing, because somebody at Blizzard was very silly. Wowhead found a file on the Cataclysm Classic PTR, of all places. Yeah, I know, Cataclassic's a thing. Kind of forgot about that. But anyway, they found a file over there that very much looks like ongoing work in player housing. That's because it's a Lua file that is called Player Housing Constants Documentation. And
I actually feel like this was a mistake. Like somebody fucked up and put this shit on the wrong thing, because this shows a lot of stuff about different cosmetics, different things that you're going to be able to customize in player housing.
that means it's got loads of variables.
I don't know why this was put on the
variables
Cataclysm
that
server.
sort of inform us basically what this system will be playing around with. It's a list of names that appears to be a list of names of things that we will be able to customize. Again, this is extremely early. This could just be work in progress, but hey, let's dig in. So to run through them, we have exterior and interior. We have housing decor themes. There are 4 right now, which are folk, rugged, generic, and opulent. And then we've got different types of decor, like floor, wall, ceiling, and tabletop, which probably means that we'll be able to customize each type of those things with those various different...
This tabletop one's the most interesting one. Customizing your tabletop, what items are on it, that's going to be like highly customizable.
Themes. But then there's maybe the more exciting part, which is exterior component size and theme, where we've actually got any, small, medium, and large for our sizes, and human
Always go
for
large.
theme. And from that, we can actually infer quite a lot. It means that we're going to get components that we can place outside that have presumably got different sizes and have got different theme categories, such as human. And if human is down there as one, it definitely makes you think about the other races as well.
Right.
Then you may be thinking, I wonder how I'm going to place any of these things in my house. WoW doesn't have a UI for that. Well, that's where it's interesting, because we have now got a reference to 2 edit modes. One is called decor, the other one is called layout. So it seems then that we'll be able to change our house's layout as well as what is inside our house, which would basically mean less like swapping out individual massive Duplo blocks, like in, say, the garrison system, and something far more akin to what you would imagine from a real house editor. The idea of placing your things in real time and then being able to choose your different decor options.
The way I see them probably doing this is, you guys know how they have right now the UI layout, where like it puts a grid on your screen and you can move your UI around and stuff. That was all new. That was added to the game, to basically allow people to actually customize their UI without using add-ons. I feel like they're going to use that same system for this stuff, because it sounds like it's a click and drag system, where like you move stuff in the room and plop it in little squares, on your screen. Like that's going to make this highly customizable. Whereas I just thought, we're going to get the typical WoW, you click the arrow and it just moves shit. And, there's like 10 different generic spots to put something. This looks like it's going to go way beyond that.
And that brings me to some variables that
dildos
kind of
in his
inform
house,
us about
probably.
gameplay stuff. So
Gotta be
there's
true to myself.
results, lock and unlock operations, as well as one called not inside house. And these very much sound like protections for trying to place things where they shouldn't be. And that does imply that we can even try in the first place, which is kind of interesting. And we've got lots of other little puzzle pieces as well. Different sized door options, cosmetic doorways, walls, floors, ceilings, stairs, pillars, and not just items to decorate with, but I guess ways to properly design the layout of your house, right? So not just, again, do you choose house A, house B, or house C? No, you're actually making what your house looks like. Ideally, it would be a little like The Sims, but, we'll have to see how the UI ends up being at the end of the day. There's another neat variable as well. It's called locked by other player. Locked by other player, what does that mean? Well, it sort of tells me that this may be multiplayer friendly.
You can invite other people to your home. That's what it's saying right there. Yeah, you'll be able to invite other people to your home. So no longer do the Moonguard people have to meet at Lion's Pride Inn. They can do all the things they want to do in their own home and invite their friends over as well. That's right, player orgies, guys.
Like if you want to have somebody else decorate your house. It'd be kind of neat. Now, obvious disclaimer here. We probably should not be seeing these things. These might be wildly out of date. I mean, it appeared in the Cataclysm, the Cataclysm Classic PTR, which is a bizarre place to find it. So the system may use all of this. It may use none of this. It could be an old version, could be a new version. Basically, only expect to get proper details at Gamescom this August. But hey, I do like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, it looks
great.
great.
Of good things, thankfully, the PTR also brought some good news. I'll kick it off with good news for the Delvers, because Gilded Crests come from Tier 11 Delves. Originally, the plan was to limit us to 18 a week, but that has now been bumped up to 21, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, is not exactly a shitload of gilded crests, but hey, over 5 weeks it is 1 extra upgrade level, but that does compound upon many other changes, like the changes to crest trading and even what we just talked about with Mythic Pluses.
Right.
Certainly positive change, and speaking of positive, man, the things that they have done to the drive system since we made our showcase video
smoother.
are really neat. People say the devil is in the
Just go through the tree. Are they making trees now something you could pass through?
neat. People say the devil is in the details, which actually came from people saying that God is in the details. And, well, basically, yeah, that's kind of right here, because Blizzard have made so many tiny
It looks like they're making,
there and everywhere.
from what I see here, they're making a lot of items that you can pass through now. Whereas before, all of them, like even the smallest little keg on the ground was causing you to stop immediately.
That just take down the levels of frustration that this system could bring out.
Makes it less
just
jarring.
massively. As an example, all those small little things cluttering the ground used to stop you if you drove over them. That no longer
I swear I don't pre-watch this shit, but it was pretty obvious that was going on.
happens. If you bump into things like, say, lamp posts at an angle, you'll continue where you used to be stopped, which is really good. Seriously, it feels so much better.
That's better,
now,
yeah.
If you do go straight into a fence or a wall, the way it used to be is you'd get sort of stuck and it would be weird. Now you don't get stuck. We then combine that with an improvement to the handling of how our cars actually drift and a whole bunch of like really cool sound effects. And basically, the worries about the usability of this system just meaning that people kind of bounce off it within the first 5 minutes, those fears are way down. And like the growls of your
the hell's
engine,
driving this?
depending
They're
on
crashing
your speed,
everywhere.
the turbo sounds that really do sound like cursed goblin nightmare tech, the drifting that's got your tires screech.
I believe they also lowered the initial like speed that we're gonna get on this thing because it was just way too fast at first. Yeah, Blizzard listening to feedback crazy. They have been. It's been pretty good.
It's really cool, actually. And look, it is primitive. It is still World of Warcraft, but that they have pulled this off in World of Warcraft is honestly...
Is he drifting on the
damn
water?
Impressive. On top of that, then, there's a bunch of class tuning and some changes, but it's always hard to judge that stuff until later on in the PTR. We are going to have our usual winners and losers video, probably one about choosing a main, and I know that the DHs were certainly worried for a bit. It seems like they are
got buffed.
actually getting a little bit of love, so hopefully
Yeah.
we'll be able to do our Demon Hunter video fairly soon. But to finish today's episode, I have got a PSA about the live game because it is the Lunar Festival in-game, and the festival itself has not received a major update, but it does have a new reward, and honestly, it's a really, really cool one, and they've also added elders around Khazalgar. The new mount is called the Lunar Launcher, and it's basically a like big firework rocket thing. It's a pretty unique looking mount, and it only costs 75 coins of ancestry.
I want to get it. If we finish the raid quickly today, if we kill Queen Answer right quick, I'm gonna go get that thing.
We'll actually already have those coins of ancestry from just, you know, years and years of this event. But if you don't,
check how many I have.
Quick trip around Azeroth honoring all the elders will get you 75 in absolutely no time. Though you'll only need to get 50 by going and talking to all the elders. And that's because you get 25 for doing up to the lunar preservation step in the event quest, which is actually way faster. It only takes about 10 minutes of flying around. Though I should note that those are soulbound, so it's not like you can just do the quest 3 times, transfer all the currency to one thing and immediately get
That'd
the
be
mount.
nice.
But still, it should take under like an hour, especially if you just go to say Northrend and clear it there, because there's a lot of elders knocking about in Northrend. It's really dense. You'll be able to do that
good to
quick.
know.
So if you want a quick way to knock this out, then doing the new achievement in Khazalgar, then Northrend, then clearing Kalimdor of Elders while you do the quest is going to be the most efficient way to do this. And if you want an add-on to help you, you can just grab Handy Notes and the Lunar Festival plugin, then just go to town, have fun. Now that is the important news for this week. Basically, Season 2 is shaping up to be a massive improvement over Season 1. It seems that some of that fear that, I don't know, people could just be too successful in the game that Blizzard had for a long time is kind of melting away. A lot of that player feedback for years and years, it just kind of felt like it maybe would get actioned on, but here it does seem to be a substantial number of changes, but most importantly, a substantial number of changes that kind of show us that maybe their philosophy has changed. So that's the important news for this week. It actually seems they're learning lessons. And if you would like to learn a little bit of a lesson and learn about a character who's almost certainly going to be featuring in the Midnight expansion, I mean, it's basically confirmed, check out this video next on Ashara. It's going to make a lot of things make sense, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Don't worry, Bell. We're going to check it out. I think Blizzard's listening to feedback, but not only that, they're listening to the right feedback, because I think for a long time, the reason why Blizzard was making the game so hard is because a lot of the feedback they get is from the guys who play this game a lot. And the guys who play the game a lot are the hardcore boys. right? And they're playing the high end shit. So they're giving feedback saying whatever, the game's too easy, whatever it is that they're crying about. And Blizzard, that's the loudest feedback to them because, you know, Greg from accounting is just popping in every once in a while to avoid his abusive wife, as I said before. He's just getting in, playing the game, and then logging out. He's not really giving feedback. So it looks like Blizzard's found out a way to kind of understand that, hey, this high-end feedback is for those high-end guys. Everybody else is playing the game a different way. So when we get some feedback from the regular Andys out there, we need to listen to it and try to implement the changes that they're crying about because that shit applies to a larger amount of the player base. Thank you for all the bald emotes down. I knew I was going to regret that shit. But good video from Bellular.